Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. My name is Keith Mann and I'll be your host today. Helping us with the production of this webinar is Nicole Reed. Today's webinar is about building a mobile strategy for your organization. As you probably know, putting a strategy together is a necessary step to ensure that your mobile projects are successful. After all, you want to be able to deliver the best, most useful data into the field and get the best, most useful data out of the field and back into your business systems so that you can derive every bit of value from that work. In this webinar, you'll hear from two speakers about how Geographic Information System, or GIS, is a logical and practical choice for building your mobile strategy. Before we get started, I want to take care of a few items regarding this webinar. First, this webinar is being recorded. We will notify you after the webinar by email to let you know when the recording is available for download. Second, our speakers will present their topics straight through. However, if you have questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions box and press return or click send. If we have time at the end, we'll answer some of your questions. Finally, when you leave the webinar, you'll be given an opportunity to complete a very short survey. We use your answers to improve the quality of our webinars, as well as prioritize future topics. So please take a minute to complete the survey when it pops up. All right, let's get started. It's a pleasure for me to introduce our first presenter, Tammy Shepard. Tammy is Chief of Application Services at Oakland County Information Technology in Michigan. She has a broad range of expertise and responsibilities, including management and coordination of the county's enterprise GIS program, the county's tax and assessment systems, the asset management systems, health applications, and other related land applications. She also formulates the business strategies that incorporate geographic information, mobile technologies, and web services to improve the county's overall operating efficiency. Tammy, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Keith. Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, again, I'm Tammy Shepard. I'll be telling you a little bit about Oakland County, Michigan. I'll be sharing some mobile strategies, and I'll be comparing and contrasting between public and field mobile approaches. I'll also be telling you about some of our mistakes made and lessons learned in those areas. And finally, I've got a tool to describe some ways for you to essentially expand your mobile footprint and get some great ideas for how to push GIS even farther into your organization. So first, a little bit about Oakland County. Our population is about 1.2 million people. We are broken down into 62 cities, villages, and townships. There's about, our area is 910 square miles, so a decent sized county for the Midwest. We have 4,000 county employees. We've currently deployed about 30 public-facing mobile GIS applications, and we have about 250 to 300 field mobile GIS users right now. And first, I wanted to take us for a little walk down memory lane. So we've been building web applications since the late 1990s and web-based GIS applications since the early 2000s. And back then, we're marching along, building our apps and making sure they work in Internet Explorer. We're using BlackBerries and feeling pretty slick about always being connected. And then in 2007, the iPhone came out, and then we think we're really slick using those. And we feel like it's cool to be different, and the technology is new. So going to a website or an application and shrinking it down and then expanding it and panning all around is fine because it's novel and we can get information that others without this technology can't. And hey, we can play our music on our phone, so we're ahead of the game there. But the novelty really wore off pretty quickly, and we definitely started migrating our website, which was a big effort, but we hadn't really made the leap with our applications and online maps. Then somewhere in the early 2010s, everybody really expected to be able to use everything you put online on a smartphone or tablet. And at that point, our mobile first strategy was born. So what does mobile first mean? It basically means that any map or app being published to the public had to work seamlessly on the mobile devices and browsers that the public were using to consume our services. And living by that strategy was a little painful at first. Back then, it took so long to develop new web applications that there were projects that we started that we actually had to scrap, because when we started them, this wasn't really a thing, and the framework that we started building them on wasn't going to translate into a mobile-friendly environment. But by the time we would have put them out to market, it would have been just completely unacceptable to publish a non-mobile friendly application. So at that point, mobility became a key component of our overall IT strategic plan. And a few years ago, when we developed our GIS mission statement and strategies, it was a key pillar of that mission too, to be able to reach anyone at any time from anywhere. So what are our key strategies around mobility? Well, there are about 6 components, and I'm going to compare and contrast these components across 2 implementations: public-facing mobile apps and internal field mobile applications. So we'll get started with our public maps and apps. The first decision point is that for everything that's published to the public, it has to use a responsive design. And responsive basically means that you are accessing a web page rather than downloading an application. Native applications have a place in our strategy, but we don't plan to release any native applications to the public because of the overhead involved in publishing and maintaining apps in both the stores for Apple and Android. We don't have unlimited funds, and we aren't really able to publish apps in that way and keep up with them. So we found it to be a lot easier and a lot more cost effective to just develop it once and let people access it through a browser. That said, when we are configuring these applications, we are doing our design in the mobile environment first. We've learned the hard way that when you design your maps and cartography on the desktop, then pull it up in a phone emulator or on the phone, there's always a tremendous amount of rework and sometimes some really disappointing compromises where you put a lot of effort into a particular feature and it just will never really work well on a mobile platform. So instead, we design for the mobile view first in an emulator and then see how it expands out on the desktop, and the adjustments are generally a lot less dramatic. The next item is to know your analytics. So when we first started doing our mobile development, the marketplace was sort of glutted with different devices. There were a ton out there, more were coming out every day, and the hipper among us were starting to use Chrome and Firefox exclusively. At Oakland County, we bought a small horde of different devices so we could test our website and apps on all the popular devices at the time: iPhones, iPad, Kindle Fire, Androids, the whole kit and caboodle. But recently, we really streamlined this practice. A couple years ago, when we started using our analytics from our website to validate exactly what devices and browsers were being used to access our website. And we drew a line in the sand. We basically decided we'd fix bugs for any device or browser that had 10,000 sessions in a month, which we consider significant at the scale we're at. We review these analytics monthly and update our supported browsers and devices and publish that to our service center. So when they find out that somebody is running Safari 7 when they call the service center with their incident, they can recommend that they upgrade their browser rather than sending a bug to our team to correct. The next strategy is to watch an actual member of the public try to use your application. When we first started configuring our mobile mapping applications, we subscribed to a site called usertesting.com. And how this website and company works is that random, usually non-IT people from all across the country are employees of this company, and they pick up jobs to test your apps or your website for you. They record their audio and their clicks, in our case on a mobile device or whatever device you specify, and then try to use your application. through their running stream of consciousness, you get to see what an average user can make of the site that you think is ready to go live. And let me tell you, we have made some major changes to our UI design based on watching somebody actually try to utilize one of our applications. It's helped us to get rid of things that are confusing, like pop-up dialog boxes or search screens that are presented right from the get-go. And I can't say enough that it's extremely enlightening to watch people on a mobile phone try to essentially use something that, because we're GIS users, we think is completely intuitive. So we do make it a standard to do usertesting.com for all our public-facing apps. Next, I want to talk about configuration versus development. I mentioned earlier that it used to take so long to develop our web apps that if you had really bad timing and a really bad app, or really big app, I should say, not a really bad app, technology could have a monumental shift between when your project started and when your product would have launched. We've been able to mitigate that issue by using all the configurable templates rather than doing custom development. And those are Esri's configurable templates. There may be one or two signature applications that absolutely require custom development in the next few years, but for the most part, we're using these configurable templates, and we're able to roll out applications within a couple of weeks that are very usable and useful to the public. So here's a few examples of our public-facing apps, and I'm just going to click through a few of them. The first is, these are all sort of show me maps. I call them show me stuff. This one shows you our cider mills. The next one is a sky gazing application. So if you want to know where the dark skies are for sky gazing, you can check that out. The next is about our medical Main Street footprint. If you want to go camping, you can check out our campsites on our Camp in Oakland application. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about in this group is just a swimming site locator. So these first five are using the basic viewer template, and we found this template to be sort of the most versatile. It has a lot of opportunity for customizations. You can customize the layout, the fonts, and the formatting in CSS. It also retains the branding elements when it's resized in mobile. So whereas other templates might hide the logo and title in favor of a search dialog box, which wasn't really ideal for these types of public apps and maps. Now, the last example I'll show you is using the beta version of the map styler template. Now, we found that this one wasn't customizable. You couldn't customize the CSS, but we found it to be more responsive. So it looks better on a variety of devices than some of the other templates. So every template has a set of trade-offs that you just have to weigh when you're considering the goals and requirements of your project. So next I'm going to talk about our mobile strategies in the context of our field applications. I'm also going to talk about some of the mistakes we've made and show you some examples once again. So this time I'm actually going to start with one of the key differences between a public application and one for your field staff. So for your field staff, you do generally know what type of device your organization is standardized on, unlike the public who can be approaching your content with any device under the sun. But at Oakland County, we have a standard device menu with a few different offerings, including iPhones, iPads, a convertible tablet, and a standard laptop. And our practice that we found to be pretty successful is to let the field staff try out all the options. They will be more comfortable with one of these options than any of the others, and when they get to choose, they are more satisfied with the device in the end. The next topic, the responsive versus native. For the field users, that decision is a little more complex, and it ties to that device discussion. So if your app is responsive, you can have some people using tablets and some people using laptops, And in general, you could have happier end users because if Joe likes the tablet and Jim likes the laptop, they can each use whatever they want and get the same user experience out of the app. But some use cases really do point you to a native app installation on a phone, iPad, or tablet, or other tablet. Because we know everybody has the same OS, here at Oakland County, we're standardized on the iPhone. We're able to consume the native app templates that Esri has provided, such as Collector. So for those focused workflows, you get a lot of value by using what they've published. If your organization hasn't standardized on a device platform, this is one good reason to think about it. So for us, again, we use the Apple platform, but plenty of governments also use Android, and most of the apps that have been published are supported on both, I believe. Now, the design discussion. That isn't much different between public and field apps. They all still have to be simple, and they should be designed on the device or devices that they're being used on right out of the gate. So you're when you do your cartography and everything, your icons aren't too big for the mobile phone or whatever. Finally, the configuration versus development discussion. This is also quite a bit different between the public and your field staff too, or can be. We configure first, and we are not actually doing custom development for our field users, but some of our, we are a big Cityworks customer, and some of our Cityworks field mode customizations, especially in our public works areas, are right on the border of custom development. We're doing extensive custom XML configurations for the individual teams that use that tool set because ultimately it was critical to the success of the program. So the moral of that story is that if your standards and strategies don't result in you meeting the needs of your end users, then you have to reconsider them. In the case of Cityworks, we have about 200 people using an application all day long. So time spent by them figuring out how to navigate around a busy page with extra fields or information is really frustrating for them, and it starts cultivating a culture of resentment against your application. And that's too many people to have working at less than an optimal efficiency for us. So we've made the commitment to make some XML configuration changes or customizations within these screens to make things more streamlined for them. Now, this discussion rolls into some of our most critical lessons about how to successfully roll out field mobile applications. And this kind of goes right to the heart of some of our biggest mistakes. We essentially fell into what I think is a somewhat common mistake of forgetting who the end users were going to be for your actual application. So in some cases, a field staff person could reach out and initiate a way to automate their field processes. But here in Oakland County, those initiatives are not generally coming from the field staff. They are initiated by the management team. And just by the nature of how things roll, it can be pretty easy to get a little farther down the path than you should without actually talking to the field staff. So first of all, management team, they're the person you know. They're the first person you met. They're the ones that are pitching you the project. So that's who you're going to get started with. And then those folks are generally way easier to get into a meeting. They're more accessible. So you're dropping an Outlook calendar invite on their calendar, and you're in business to start talking about the project. On the flip side, just in my experience, it's a pretty huge deal to get the field staff into a meeting. The work that they are doing is so valuable to the organization that it is hard to pull them out of the field and have them come in and sit in a meeting. Somebody else has to coordinate it besides you. It's generally got to be on a specific day or time. And then if the weather is doing something wrong, if it's snowing too much or raining too much or too hot or too cold, the whole meeting can get called off because those folks are responding to an emergency. But if you get too far down the path without them there, it is really easy to let the management team or their supervision represent them. And but we do really have to remember that they are not the actual end user of the tool you are building. The management team's definitely important in the process. They're important stakeholders as they're going to use some parts of the system. But we've run projects where we didn't really have enough boots around the table from the very beginning, and that resulted in an end product that the field staff didn't necessarily like as much as they could. So another thing to look out for is I call it, well, it's just one more field for them to enter problem. So we as GIS professionals, we get excited about getting all this data out of our field workers. The management team gets excited about reports and new analytics. And before you know it, your field staff is saddled with the collection of a mountain of new information. For our first version, we now really try to keep it to the barest essentials. If what they were putting on paper before was enough, it is enough to get started with, and you can talk about how you want to enhance things as you move forward in the long-term future. And then another thing that is a pretty tricky issue to navigate is around dashboarding and work management. Nobody really likes to feel like they're being monitored, so this is worth some serious strategizing beforehand, just to ensure that you understand why a dashboard would be useful to both the management team and the field staff, and to be sure that it's presented very sensitively to both sides of that story. So I've presented kind of a lot of pitfalls and problems. How would you facilitate kind of solving those problems up front and resulting in a good outcome to get around some of these issues? There's an author and journalist, his name's Charles Duhigg, and he wrote an article for the New York Times a couple years ago about a multi-year study that Google did to try to figure out why some teams were more successful than others. And what they learned was that it could not be directly correlated back to necessarily management style, skill set, talent, or diversity. The thing that differentiated the highest performing teams from the others was that on the high performing teams, everybody participated fairly equally in discussions. So to me, this is pretty good news. We might not be able to attract Google's talent pool, but I think we can try to ensure that we all hear and understand each other through good meeting facilitation and good listening. And lastly, another great piece of advice that we've received, one of our cities or one of our townships in our county, a guy there named Frank Fisher, he actually doled out this piece of advice, and that's to make sure that the field staff walk away from your project with something that they need. Their lives have got to be improved by your product. Whether they get that one piece of data that they used to have to call back to the office for, or an ortho photo of the area they're in, find that one thing that is going to make their lives better and easier, and make sure it's a non-negotiable deliverable of the project so that they're walking away with something that makes them like your app. So I've got a few samples of our mobile apps. The first is an animal census application, and that application is basically being used by students in the summer to catalog whether or not our homes have received pet licenses. So they're required to have a pet license. They walk up to the door, they knock on it. And we've obviously color-coded the map to show whether or not the home has a pet license or not, so they're only visiting the ones that don't have licenses. If when they knock on the door, a dog is barking, perhaps that's a good indicator that these folks need to go ahead and purchase their pet license. So that's been very popular with our animal control division, and we've got 16 users with iPhones out in the field with that each summer. Year-round, our well and septic permits are being collected using Trimble R1 units and iPhones by about 20 users in the field, and they're out there doing GPS points of the wells and the septic fields. And finally, there's the form there. So you can see some of the data they're collecting there. And then one of our more recent apps is a treasurer staking application. And that is being used by about 7 users. It does include, in the office, we're using a dashboard configuration. And these folks are essentially staking properties that are about to become delinquent. So that we're using that to manage the folks that are out in the field doing the actual staking of those properties. They're using it in the field to find the properties and get their bearings around where they are. And finally, CAMs, to show our Cityworks implementation. We've essentially got the simplified version of the CAMs configuration, and then we've got a JavaScript map. And so this is the field mode version of our Cityworks implementation. And I referred to CAMs, that's our collaborative asset management system. Sorry for the acronym. But again, what's presented to the end user is the bare minimum of what they need to do their work. So once you have all your strategies and approaches in place, and you're ready to avoid all the mistakes that we have made the hard way or learned from the hard way, you may be wondering where to find your next opportunity to expand GIS, and wondering what areas can you tackle to expand your mobile footprint. Well, here in Oakland County, we really like maturity models. And so we actually developed our own GIS maturity model to help us measure the investment that we're making, the impact of the investment we're making over time. We call that our GeoVision assessment. And why that's relevant here is that we have found and believe that there's a place for mobility in nearly every line of business and function where you are likely already using GIS. And this tool is a great way to get ideas for what you could be doing to advance your mobile presence and get more people using GIS in your organization. And the ideas that you see kind of highlighted here around environmental protection, homeland security, and taxation, these are 3 of about 20 applications that we've identified in this model. So, and this tool is available for free for any government on our G2G marketplace. That's government to government marketplace. We publish out a variety of resources for other governments to take advantage of. And you can go ahead and download that for free if you're a government from that website and start using it to spark ideas or measure your investment like we do. And finally, to wrap up, I have a few resources. Here I've got the Oakland County website, and if you're interested in seeing that, the link to our GeoVision assessment is the g2gmarketplace.com. And then if you're interested in checking out some of our public-facing apps, you can go to our open data page, which is branded as accessoakland.com or accessoakland.org. And that is all I have.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. That was great. A lot of great advice and good examples. For those of you who haven't put up an open data site, I encourage you to go visit the Access Oakland site that is off of the link there that you see for Tammy, that Tammy ended with there. All right, let's go right to our next presenter, Diana Dittamore. Diana is an experienced product marketing manager at Esri. She is responsible for marketing Esri's collective suite of ArcGIS field apps, which are designed to simplify mobile data collection and optimize field operations. Welcome, Diana.
Thanks, Keith. As a product marketer of Esri's field apps, I have the opportunity to hear about the pain points many of our customers are facing. Without a doubt, regardless of industry, I'm hearing loud and clear that organizations are seeking solid mobile strategies. More than ever, they recognize the high cost of burdensome paper-based workflows they are using, typically in siloed environments. I don't need to tell you that in local governments, strained budgets and high expectations are the rule of the day. Let's talk about how ArcGIS apps for the field support the digital transformation you're being asked to deliver. So to set the stage, let's take an overview look at field operations. In general, the workflow is to plan what needs to be done, coordinate where work is needed and who will do it, navigate the field crew to the right places, capture the relevant field data, and monitor the progress and outcome. This is a simplification. I want to be clear that this is not strictly a circular process. Rather, there are processes within the overall process, but it's a framework that allows us to have a meaningful conversation. Let's start by looking at a scenario that is pretty common today. This guy behind the desk is Ben. Ben is an operations manager in the city's Public Works Department. Ben spends most of his time shuffling papers among 3 towering piles on his desk. One is for projects that are about to start, one is for in-progress operations, and one, the smallest pile, is for completed tasks. Ben also assigns and monitors the department's field crews, though he never really knows with any certainty where they are or what they're doing until they report back to him at the end of each day. This makes it difficult for Ben to communicate progress on projects to other city departments. Now let's meet a field worker from the Public Works Department. This is Natalie. She spends most of her time inspecting and servicing various city assets. Each morning, she goes to the office to get her work assignments from Ben before heading out into the field. She always carries an overflowing clipboard that holds all the pieces of paper she needs for the day's work, as well as a badly worn map book, so she can find the city assets that she has to inspect or repair. You can imagine that on a windy day, Natalie is quite a spectacle as she attempts to keep her work orders and notes from flying away. And I didn't mention her daily stops at the local coffee bar. At the end of each day, Natalie's final task is to drive back to the office to hand her completed work assignments to Ben, who adds them to his 3rd pile. From working with Natalie's paperwork, Ben is painfully aware of the damage a coffee spill can do to a paper report. Already we can see there are challenges to this process of managing field work, not the least of which is the impact to your data. Paper-based processes are at the root of a lot of data issues and inefficiencies. Let's see how a digital transformation can make a positive impact. We're going to meet our hero. This is the city's GIS manager, Nick. He's worked hard using ArcGIS Pro to create a system of record for the city that includes street networks and the precise locations of assets, such as fire hydrants and park infrastructure. Under a city manager's directive to get more value out of existing technology, Nick embarked on a new initiative to improve efficiency and accuracy at the Public Works Department by employing ArcGIS field apps, which work directly and seamlessly with ArcGIS Pro. Nick met with Ben and Natalie and had to assure them that he understood their pain points and concerns about learning new technology. Understandably, Ben and Natalie were comfortable with their familiar paper processes and worried about replacing them with mobile solutions. With Nick's guidance, here's the newly implemented mobile strategy they are using. Using Workforce for ArcGIS in a web browser, Ben first creates work projects and then assigns Natalie her field jobs for the day. Natalie receives her field assignments via the Workforce app on her smartphone. As she makes headway in her assignments, she communicates her status to Ben via the app. Ben can see where she is in real time and monitor her progress to determine whether she will complete her tasks in time or whether he needs to reassign her outstanding duties to someone else. To get from one job to another, Natalie uses Navigator for ArcGIS on her phone. The app works both online and offline to help Natalie find the most efficient route to her next assignment, even if it's off the commercial street network. It uses audible turn-by-turn directions to guide Natalie, so she's able to keep her focus on the road. Eliminating the need for a driver to look away from the road is really important from a safety perspective. When she's in a familiar area and doesn't need the voice-guided directions, she can easily turn down the volume on Navigator. And because it is integrated with other ArcGIS field apps, Natalie moves seamlessly between Navigator, Workforce, and the other apps in her arsenal. She uses Collector for ArcGIS to capture a new asset, a recently built slide in the community park's playground. Not only can she create a new GIS feature in Collector, but she can also update existing features. If she sees a light pole with a broken bulb, for example, directly on her mobile device, even if she's disconnected from the internet. Collector's map-centered interface allows her to find asset locations on a map and click on them to see and edit their data on an easy-to-use screen. This enables Natalie to record highly accurate information. Once she's finished with her data collection, the updates can be seen immediately back in the office. Natalie's next job for the day requires taking a survey of amenities, such as the number of parking spaces and picnic tables in the park. She uses Survey 123, whose form-centric workflow makes it easy to collect data, then share and analyze the results. Natalie opens an already built community park survey via the Survey 123 mobile app and walks around the park, selecting answers for each question from a drop-down menu and taking a picture for further documentation. As she is taking inventory, she sees a broken picnic table. She has also documented badly faded stripes that marked the handicapped parking spaces. The survey is smart, so it hides or displays additional questions based on the answers Natalie enters. Every time Natalie completes the survey, the results get reported in real time back to the office. Back in the office, Ben can already see the information that Natalie has captured using Survey 123 and Collector. Seeing this, he generates a new work order. Then, using Workforce, assigns available field workers to repaint the faded handicap parking spots and fix the picnic table. From the office, Ben monitors Natalie and the other field workers in real time using Operations Dashboard. This is the same tool the city manager uses to keep an eye on day-to-day activities, as well as to monitor big events. This allows Ben to see not only public works activity, but also what is going on with other departments, such as Parks and Recreation, Police and Fire, so he can respond quickly if something unexpected occurs in a location where his field crews are working. Operations Dashboard splits everything up into focused dashboards with maps, charts, and graphs, making it easy for managers and executives to understand an entire situation and make critical decisions quickly. So in this public works example, what have we seen and what does it mean for you? Our story showed a department using mobile apps to improve efficiencies in coordinating field work with Workforce, routing a worker to field assignments with Navigator, then capturing field data and reporting it back to the office with Collector and Survey 123. Finally, we saw the back office monitoring field activities in near real time with Operations Dashboard. We followed a single field worker, but chances are there are more workers where you are, and this could be any department that needs to do field work, not just a public works department. This could even be a department in your organization, couldn't it? ArcGIS apps for the field are designed to improve efficiencies in your field work activities. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Diana. Let me advance here. So you just heard two perspectives about creating a successful mobile strategy. Tammy provided guidelines used at Oakland County for both internal and external mobile apps. Among all of her recommendations, some of them included taking a mobile-first approach to app design. In other words, design for small screens first and make your apps responsive. She encouraged user testing before releasing apps into the field, always good advice. And finally, Tammy showed you the Oakland County's GeoVision assessment tool. You can download it at g2gmarketplace.com. Next, Diana talked about a suite of apps provided by Esri that when used together provide a core infrastructure for any mobile strategy. A couple key points that Diana made included alleviating slow and messy paper-driven workflows by using mobile apps. Also, using apps to increase productivity, not only for your field crews, but for everyone else. Finally, Diana also advocated using Esri apps together to coordinate field work, to route workers to assignments, to capture data, and to monitor field activities. So I see that we have just a few questions here. I have a first one here for, I think, Diana. Is there a specific combination of apps that you recommend for someone just getting started?
Well, that is a good question. And it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish. It's a good question. Kind of depends on what you're trying to accomplish. We see a lot of customers start with Collector because getting accurate data from the field into the office is generally one of their greatest challenges, and this app has been around a while and is really popular to do that, especially where field assets exist. When we introduced Workforce, we saw a lot of organizations combine it with Collector and also Survey 123. And many customers also use Operations Dashboard to visualize what's going on in the field in real time. And many organizations have actually become ArcGIS customers through Survey 123, which has an end-to-end workflow for capturing and analyzing data. So again, it just really depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, thanks, Diana. I think this next question is directed at Tammy. What types of challenges did you have during your field mobile projects at Oakland County?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, I think I detailed quite a few of the bigger ones, but I think all of that culminates probably in the concept of you really only get one chance to make a first impression. Here in Oakland County, and I think this is true of many governments, you have folks that you're going to work with for as long as you're in the organization. So that could be 1 year, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20, 30, whatever. And if you give folks an application that they don't like from the get-go, no matter what you do, it's very hard to make that over the years that you're going to be there. So really spend the time with them, make sure that they feel heard, and ensure that they are getting something that they need out of that application.
Okay, thanks, Tammy. I think this one's for Diana. My organization uses Portal for ArcGIS, which for some of you may not know this, it's the on-premises implementation of ArcGIS. So they use Portal and they want to know if Workforce works with Portal.
I'm glad you asked. Yes, in fact, all the field apps work with Portal.
Okay. Someone wants to know what are the main differences between Collector and Survey 123? Could you just briefly address that, Diana?
That's a really good question. Collector is a map-centric workflow. So that's often used if you're going out to survey assets in the field. Survey 123 is a form-driven workflow, and they can be used in combination. So for example, if you're doing fire hydrant inspections, you may be using Navigator to go to your asset, but you may within Navigator open a Survey 123 survey to collect more detailed information about that fire hydrant. We have a lot of customers who are using both apps.
Okay, thanks, Diana. Tammy, I think this is for you. Are you using ruggedized devices for your field workers?
You know, we used to use ruggedized devices. When we first started rolling out our larger field applications in our public works areas, we did start with ruggedized devices because the users there were newer to computer use. So they were afraid of breaking the technology. They didn't want to drop a laptop or whatever and have it break and then have the trouble of all that. And so we ended up going with about 100 ruggedized devices for our first round of devices. But over time, we've actually been able to migrate those folks either to a standard laptop, which is considerably cheaper. Even if they break one or two, it's still cheaper. So a standard laptop or tablet, they're getting more comfortable with the lighter devices. So we have been able to kind of graduate down to the smaller devices, but the ruggedized devices were very valuable upfront for ensuring that people were comfortable with the device they were using.
Okay, thank you. Diana, I have another question here. Is ArcGIS Online account necessary to use these apps?
Yes, an ArcGIS organizational account is required to use the apps.
Okay. Someone had asked about whether we would email the GeoVision assessment. I believe, Tammy, you want people to log into the site, but can you just answer quickly that question?
Yeah, we do prefer to have folks download it, yes, from the G2G marketplace.
Okay. I encourage you guys to go there. There's a lot of interesting things right there. I think you'll find it very enlightening. All right. I'm going to finish this up. Right now, I guess I want to just point you to these resources. We have a couple of documents that you should take a look at. So if you want more information about some of the concepts that were presented today, take a look at these documents. The one on the left is a new white paper created by the good folks at GovLoop, talking about how to build a mobile government strategy with GIS. And the other on the right is Esri's Mobile Government Strategy brochure. Both are free downloads, so please take a look at them. And I'm sure they'll give you new ideas about building your own mobile strategy using GIS. Of course, if you want to reach out to me, I can connect you with the right people or try to answer your questions. So here's my email and phone number. You can follow us on the government team on Twitter at ESRISLGov. The SL stands for state and local. Or on Instagram at ESRIGovTeam. Please stay tuned for future webinars in the Mobile Government Strategy series. Thank you to our presenters, Tammy and Diana. You did a wonderful job. Nicole, thank you. And on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for attending today.